uploading videos talking about this house arrest and about other things. Remember to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and share this video for family and friends. Hope you have a good time watching my dad's videos. Bye!
Right, today I'm joined by John Smith, and John is joining us today to discuss the difference between the normal law in the United Kingdom and common law, and he's sort of the last word, if you like, on common law. Welcome, John.
Hi, hello everyone.
So if you can explain to us, like most people like myself before I joined this started this journey, understood English law as English law and Scottish law as Scottish law. And then now we're learning that in the United Kingdom, we're under maritime law, and there's another law called common law. So Donald Trump has made it very clear that he wants to take the US back to constitutional law and the United Kingdom back to common law. So can you explain what the differences are?
Yes, unknown to myself, I had entered the sort of court system. I think it was back in 2003. It was the first experience I had in courts. I went in to protect myself with a lawyer, a solicitor, to back me up. And after a couple of years, I found out basically how corrupt the system was. I ended up suffering through no fault of my own. It was simply due to the corrupt legal system that I had. But for some reason, when I'd actually looked at that, I decided, well, this is unacceptable. So we had a look at the system to find out basically how it was run, and basically says what people would do to obtain a lawful remedy. And we found out that within the existing system, you can't do that. While people recognise themselves as a living man or a living woman, and they exist in the real world, the courts don't accept you as a living man or woman. In fact, if you actually try to get into court by saying you're a living man or woman, they won't actually entertain it. Now, the corporations of the courts in this country, in fact throughout the world, are all companies, they're corporations. They actually exist for profit, they're run for profit, and it's nothing to do with justice. But what they do is they deal with the legal fiction. Now, for those of you who don't know, the legal fiction was actually created at birth by the government. So when your parents are actually informed that they have to register your birth certificate, it's something that you don't have to do, but the government will actually threaten you with that, and they'll even fine you for failing to do so. But when your parents create the certificate, this is the government at the same time create a legal identity for you, which is effectively a legal entity, a fictitious name, a corporation, but they never actually tell you. And then for the rest of your life, the government will only ever engage with you by using the fiction. So effectively, it's a contract. Now, not only is it a contract, it's fraudulent, because according to their system, it involves more than one individual, which is the child, the parents, and then the government. Because it involves more than the one, it is a contract. And according to their rules, for a contract to be valid, there has to be various things. The main one being, there has to be full disclosure. Well, I was never told. In fact, nobody's told what's happened with the creation of the fiction. Your parents are not told, and the government used this without your knowledge or consent. Now, in doing so, that then voids the fictitious name, the legal entity, which means when the government use it in the court system or on their documents, whether it's a driving license, a passport, your national insurance card, anything, they're actually committing crimes against the people when they use this fiction, because it's fraudulent, but they're not telling the people. And the problem is that the people don't understand this, and when they go into court, they're actually forcibly having this legal title attached to the living man or the living woman, and you're being prosecuted for it. So effectively, it says when you go into their courts, it's commercial courts, it's maritime law and the rules that they use against you, and the people don't know what's going on. Effectively, they're using a different language against you.
So there was a movie, was there not, called Straw Man, which sort of laid that out in a movie style.
Yeah. The guys were actually clever. He says a couple of guys, I've spoken to one of the guys that done the film, he says that they'd done really well. It's a black and white film, just a short film. In fact, it's actually on the Common Law Court website. You can view it here. But it actually confirms that a straw man is created at birth, which is your legal fiction. And then effectively, the government then deal with the legal fiction. So the government make money by using the fiction, and they do various things, including invest money. But what they do is they hold you liable for all crimes and for all payments and punishments. If you wish to pay if they wish council tax off you, if they wish to fine you or charge you, or you needed to submit court papers to court to defend yourself, you have to pay for the privilege. So basically, every time they engage with your fiction, it costs money, and that's what they do. So the only way to actually separate yourself from their system is by confirming that you exist as a living man or a living woman. Because believe it or not, many people who will be watching your video just now, if you say to them, can you confirm who you are you a living man or woman? Well, apart from physically being there and seeing them and touching them, apart from that, there's nothing to confirm that they're living men or women, because they'll pull out a bank card. Well, a bank card confirms the fiction. They'll pull out a driving license. They'll pull out a passport. They have national insurance. They'll pull out everything. Every document they have is for the legal fiction. It's not the living man. So the living man doesn't exist. So what we've done with the Common Law Court, we've actually allowed people to make a personal declaration to confirm that they are in fact a living man or a woman. And all they do is fill a simplified version of a birth certificate, and that confirms that they're living. Now, having done that, they then have the opportunity to claim ownership of the legal entity that was created, because the government can't own it. It says the government have created fraud by using that. It voids the contract, and because the fiction still exists, it's on your passport, your driving license, it's on everything. It says the rightful owner should be the individual that was given the birth name. So once you confirm that you are in fact a living man or woman, you can then claim ownership of the legal title. And when you do that, it then protects you in their courts, because the courts can't actually deal with you then.
Wow. I actually went onto your website this morning, which is commonlawcourt.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
I'll put the link on here as well. And I've actually applied through your system because I believe that we're going to move that to that place anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm very much a pioneer. I'd like to be at the front of the queue rather than the back of the queue.
Yeah. Well, we have people, because of this position, basically you're just confirming that you are living, you're a living man. And now, having done that, we have people just now, people have signed up to this this concept, this procedure, and it's all about their protection and their lawful remedy. So they've signed up now. We have people in 120 different countries have signed up already. With thousands of people signed up, but it's something that they seem to be using because they're looking for protection, they're looking for a lawful remedy, and they're aware of currently what's going on throughout the world. This does offer them protection.
Well, I've spoken to one of your clients, and they recommended me to speak to you because they had a court case that they were supposed to attend, and when they got to court and declared who they were refused entry to the court.
Yeah, well, they will do. I dealt with, I used to work for large PLCs years ago. I was very successful, had a good career. I made the mistake of, because the PLC had informed the general managers that they were selling the company, I decided to take the chance and work for a couple of private directors. So I went to a private club. Now, having went to this, I ended up working for them. They were criminals, and it affected my position. So I decided, look, enough's enough, and I left. But I had a good career. It was okay. And then when I actually then realised there was a problem, I then had to go to court. So having went to court just now and used that, I thought, look, I'll go in here and deal with it. But when one thing led to another, I ended up bankrupt. I run out of money. They dragged it out for months and years. So I ended up bankrupt. But when I went in to represent myself in the court and went into the judge, having paid my solicitor and obviously run out of money, I represented myself. And when the judge says to me, what's your name? I pointed out that my name was John Smith and I'm a living man. He looked at me and smiled and then says, right, fine, well, I'm not really interested. I looked at him not knowing I said, well, what do you mean you're not interested? I'm here dealing with a case. You can't not be interested. I says, well, I'm a living man and I stand under common law. He says, I couldn't care less. I said, what do you mean you couldn't care less? This is, I'm here for the case. I've identified myself and I'm here and I stand under common law. I'm not under your jurisdiction. He says, not interested, not interested. He says, don't accept it. And he just carried on and he made a decision. I came away. I thought, why can he do that? He can't do that. He says, but technically he can. What the judges do, some of them, it's actually quite amusing. They'll go in and they'll actually say to you, are you John Smith? Or Mr. John Smith, because they want what they call is basically a joinder. They want a contract. If you accept you're Mr. John Smith, basically, or the legal fiction, they then have control over you and authority and jurisdiction. If you identify yourself as a living man and only by the name John or John Smith, they have no authority over you. So they can't do that. They can't prosecute you. They can't actually speak to you. And believe it or not, you'll have judges in court. If you identify yourself as a living man, excuse me, they will actually turn around and say to you, I can't hear you. Now, it's not that they're deaf. They're actually at least 6 feet away. They're not deaf, but they actually say, I can't hear you. We've actually had one of the guys shouting out at the top of his voice, says, well, can you hear me now? And screamed at the judge. He says, no, I don't mean that. I can't hear you. He says, I'm not dealing with this. What he means by not hearing you is he cannot hear a living soul, a living man. He can only deal with a fiction, which is technically a dead entity.
Yeah.
Now, on that point, if you represent the dead entity, he will proceed. Now, we'd actually phoned, we've had quite, excuse me, tickling throat. We've actually had a few people taking on courts and trying different things. We had someone that was amused. It was an amusing concept. He went into a court in Portsmouth. Now, he'd went in, and what the judges are now doing, they're trying to do, is if they don't get any joinder in court or they can't create a contract, they actually say that you're mentally unstable and they actually want to have you examined. And obviously they'll say that you're not compos mentis and they'll just proceed against you. So he says, well, hold on a minute. He says, what makes them, obviously, what gives them the authority and what gives them the right to say that you're mentally unstable? So we'd actually got this guy who went into the court and he'd asked his name. He says, so he gave his name and he said, I'm a living man. And he says, no, I'm not really interested. He says, are you Mr. So-and-so? He says, no, I've just explained I'm a living man. And the judge was getting hacked off. He says, look, I'm telling you now, you've got to accept this fiction because we're proceeding against you regardless. So the guy turned around and says to the judge, I'm concerned. And the judge says, why are you concerned? He says, well, I'm concerned just now. He says, given the behaviour of this court. And the judge says, why? What's wrong? He says, well, I'm having a conversation with you and we're 6 feet apart. He says, you seem to lack the capability to recognise that I'm a living man. And yet you've openly admitted, if I represent a dead entity, you're quite happy to speak to me. If I told you that I spoke to the dead, I'd be locked up. Yet you're happy to do so. And you can't recognise me as a living man, although we're speaking to one another. He says, so therefore, he says, before we proceed, I would like, obviously, your mental capacity, obviously, challenged. I says, I'm going to challenge this just now, and obviously I want a second opinion on this. He just turned around and says, you won't be doing that. The case is fixed. I'm adjourning it for 2 months, and he walked out the court. But the thing is, it's using their own rules against them. That's what the judges do. But it is funny.
We're starting to wake up to how corrupt the system is, and Donald Trump is draining the swamp, and that means all facets of it. And he's doing a phenomenal job at the moment.
Yeah.
But if we return to common law, then it'll be a far fairer way forward.
Yeah.
And that's one of the points in NASARA. NASARA for America, JSARA for the rest of the world. And for my inside information, 209 countries have signed up to JSARA.
Yeah.
So they will all have to, and one of the points that the gentleman made that was telling me about it was that one of the biggest jobs will be retraining the judges, the barristers, and the lawyers.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's the way it goes. They're indoctrinated within the system. Unfortunately, not many people understand what's going on. which is everyone should know what's going on, but it's been hidden by the state away for years because they obviously have an ulterior motive. They make sure that the system's there and they operate, and everyone has their part to play in it. We come across many people, including the police. The police, it's amazing the amount of police that actually don't know what's going on, and yet they actually believe that they have the right to do certain things, which they don't. They don't understand the law, and even the judges, because we're taking on judges now, and it's especially when you get down to the likes of the magistrates, the junior judges and magistrates and things like that, and the smaller courts. They don't actually understand the law. They can't apply it, and all they're dealing with is corporate rules, maritime law. And when you actually catch them out, they just ignore you point blank, and they'll even throw people inside just for refusing to take or refusing to accept their decision or choosing to take on a judge in court. You get the better of them. We've had people thrown in jail for days and kept in, this is without getting out at all, until they admit that they have the legal fiction or they accept it. And then obviously it gives the courts back control over them.
But it just shows you, doesn't it, that if you're which we all are, we're tied up in this very corrupt system that is totally in their favour.
Yeah.
And it seems like we're now getting control back. And one very interesting statement that I've mentioned a few times, and this is the second time today, that Donald Trump said that they have taken away your God-given right to freedom. And I will return it to you. And he seems like he's doing that. And it doesn't matter if you don't like him because he's got floppy hair, or he makes silly comments 20 years ago, or he makes silly tweets. I often say to people, have you ever met him? I don't know. I say, well, how can you judge somebody just from little bits that you see that the media put out? And I know for a fact that since I've been doing my videos, I can edit stuff out to make it look different, and I know nothing about editing. And these people, it's their job. And it's become very, very clear. And a lot of people have pointed out to me in America, in Democrat states, that the councils and authorities have been actually out on the streets placing bottles full of gasoline, petrol, and bricks and everything in place for these riots. They've been actually doing this, and the whole system is corrupt. Yeah,
it is. We've got, as you're looking at the situation with sort of common law, people believe hundreds of years ago slavery was abolished. Excuse my French, bollocks. This is we're still slaves, but nobody knows it. It's effectively you're in slavery because of the legal fiction that's attached to you. I don't know if many, or hopefully, says you may have quite a few viewers will remember the television program. It was an American series. It was called Roots, regarding the slaves in the 70s. Now, it was actually quite good, but just to highlight something, the main slave in the program was actually called Kunta Kinte. It was his tribal name. When he went over to the plantation owner had said to him they were changing their names. So they asked the slave, what's your name? Your name is now Toby. And he said, no, it's Kunta Kinte. So they strapped them up to some pole, tied them up there, and then they whipped them. They actually just about killed the guy. In every few lashes of the whip, they would say to him, what's your name? He kept saying Kunta Kinte. And eventually, just before he was just about dead, he eventually conceded and says, right, my name's Toby. So he got him to repeat it. So the slave again says, my name's Toby. As soon as he'd done that, he's then the slave. So he's adopted the position. He's accepted his slave name. They can punish him and do what they want. He's the property of the slave owner. That's what the governments do with the slave name. Now, they're careful with it. They don't actually whip you now. But what they do is they say to you, you have a new name. My name is John Smith. And they say, no, your name is Mr. John Smith. It sounds the same, it's tricky, but they've added a Mr., which is the corporate title, the commercial interest. Now, when they do that, if I accept it, I'm now the slave. That's the way it works. But they've been using this for years. And because of the slave, that actually says to people, when William Wilberforce had banned the slavery years ago, hundreds of years, he said, this is unacceptable. We no longer have slaves. But then when they did, exactly the same time, they then changed the format, so they created the fictions. And it was based on the plantations and the birth certificates, and they created the slave name for the slaves, but they didn't tell you what they were doing. So if you accepted the slave name, by disguising it as a mister and giving you a title, they says you're now important, you're no longer a slave. So if I had been a slave, my slave name was John Smith, and I says, right, I'm John. He said, no, you're no longer a slave now. You're a living man here. We'll give you a new position, a new title. You're now Mr. John Smith. So he stand up and say, I'm Mr. John Smith now. It's not, it's a slave. It's exactly the same. They've just changed the way it's worded. But so that's what they do.
When you were born, were you John Smith?
Yes, I was actually. my father's also John Smith as well.
Okay, and your son?
No, this is Lee. Changed it. I think 2 generations are enough.
That's enough. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, are you feeling the same way that we're moving towards this common law?
Yeah, without a doubt. I think the people now, similar to yourself, you pointed out there's that many things happening just now in the world, and I think this year's a big year. I think that people have realised just how faulty and corrupt the system is, and they're standing up and saying, no, we have rights here. As Donald Trump saying, you have inherent birthrights. Obviously, he says they're forcing their will against you and their rules and regulations. It's ridiculous. More and more people are understanding now we don't have to do that, and they're actually standing at the side saying, no, we want to be heard. The common law court set up a declaration for the people, and it was the people that had done it. The common law court exists only to provide a lawful remedy because it's unavailable just now. So the fact that they provide this lawful remedy, they've came up with a declaration for the people to stand under, which is on the common law court, similar to other documents like the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, the American Declaration of Independence, Declaration of Our Oath, and constitutions. It stands, it's issued by the people. So it gives you a structure under which to operate, but it's there to protect the people as living men and women, which is fine. And we're starting to use that just now in the courts, and they can't do anything about it because you're establishing your position. They can't challenge it then.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that it's all happening this year.
Yeah.
2020
Yeah.
and start to see things clearly.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's fine. As I said just now, there's that many people, there's that many opinions going about in the country just now throughout the world. When you look at something you'd mentioned yourself about editing, you can edit things to make things look completely different. These guys that are in charge, and they have like the world's media and things like that, mainstream media, it's all crap. So they're putting out messages for the people, and of course most of the people don't understand what's going on. Now, of course, just follow along with this and watch the mainstream media, but they're getting conflicting messages. All this crap about the lockdown and coronavirus and all the rest of it, it's just ridiculous. I went out a couple of days ago, I was just walking along, and I hadn't been out for a while, and I just happened to go into a shop. When I go into a shop, someone had actually jumped away from me as if they say it was a leper or something. Yeah. And I just looked at it, and he says, are you real? But there are actually people panicking on the streets. It's actually found out, this is in the UK in the last 5 years, in the first 3 months of this year, January, February, March, there's actually less people have died this year than there has been in the last 5 years. And yet we're in lockdown.
Well, most of the people that have died this year have died of fear.
Yeah. Oh, as I say, it's a bigger killer. Just now, it's just that and ignorance. They just don't know what's going on. And yet you have people that stand up, people that are taking on things and trying to do things. We don't get the full story, but you refer to Donald Trump. He's trying this, by all accounts, he's trying to do lots of things, but we're not privy to all the information. Of course, he's attacked by various members in the media as well to try and discredit him. But obviously there are people doing it. It's just obviously the people are not aware fully as to what's going on. The more and more that this message gets out, the easier it becomes. But I think what they're doing just now, I think I heard earlier on today, I was speaking to someone in New Zealand, they were saying just now that they're actually now forcing vaccinations. Now they've actually stated that the vaccinations will be given, and at the end of the day, if you're not complying, they're actually going to take them, put them into self-solitary and keep them there and detain them until they actually take them. I said, you can't do that. I says, it's not even a police state. It's unrealistic doing things like that. But if people stand together as men and women, I says, you can take away that control from them.
Yeah, it was very interesting because I addressed this with my people behind the scenes the other day, because a lot of people have said the same in New Zealand. They've said it in a number of other countries.
Yeah.
And the point that was made to me is if Donald Trump just put a stop to it and said, no, vaccines aren't going to be mandatory, then he wouldn't be able to expose how evil the deep state is. They've got to be allowed to show how evil they are. And he'll allow vaccinations, mandatory vaccinations, in certain countries and certain states that are ruled by deep state evil people. So that people wake up to the fact that it's not what he wants. It's the leaders of these countries and evil states, which happen to be run by Democrats in America, and by the deep state around the world, but he will expose them for what they are. And I'm starting to get that, but I feel very sorry for those people who voted for people that were, and have people in power that are corrupt, deeply corrupt.
Oh yeah, without doubt. I said, people don't. It says, if somebody was to tell me about 15 years ago, 15 maybe 16 years ago, I've been looking at this stuff. If somebody told me just prior to that what was going on, I would have just looked at them as if they were an idiot. Just as I'll forget it, it'll never happen. But the thing is, it's only when this is exposed and people realise what's going on. Unfortunately, when there is things happening just now, there's still a lot of people choose to listen to the media and they take the media spin on it, and the mainstream media. If they actually stop and just look at it and start asking questions, it becomes easier. But I think more and more people are asking questions now, and it is becoming easier now. Hopefully sooner rather than later, because it means you can actually protect more people rather than having them suffering. But it is, I understand obviously what's going on there, and it's just unfortunately it's taken a while to get out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very, very much for that insight. I'll add the links to your website on here. And for those people who are interested, I certainly was interested because I've been a victim myself in the courts of something I didn't do, but they forced it. They actually lost the case, but they won. It was to do with revenue and customs. They lost the case, but on a civil matter managed to hang on to the money on a technicality. So yeah, I've learnt the hard way, and karma's a wonderful thing. John, thank you very much for your time today, and thank you for the explanation.
Perfect. No, it's fine.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
I'll point people towards you.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. That's fine. Well, cheerio to all your viewers. Thanks for joining just now. And obviously, it's the more that sign up and stand together, hopefully, the easier it'll become for everyone in the future.
Okay. Thank you very much, John.
Perfect. Thanks a lot.